Hi, Maria here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you some perfumes that I received from Meleg Perfumes and I can't wait. They gave me the feels. Okay, before I get started, if you haven't subscribed, just go ahead and hit that button. Join the Weird Wonderful family. I would love to have you part of the community. We are an awesome bunch here. And without further ado, let's get into this. Now, full disclosure, Matthew Meleg reached out to me, asked if he could send me the fragrances, but just like Fragrance Du Bois, they sent it more as PR, so there was no request for a video or anything like that. So I really appreciate that. It just helps me to bring perfumes to you guys that you may or may not be interested in. So I'm excited to share these with you because, first of all, Matthew Meleg is a Canadian. He originates from Vancouver, and I had first heard about him about a year ago. I ended up watching this little 14-minute kind of like mini documentary on him, and I was so fascinated because he's a self-taught perfumer who does things kind of old world in the way that he produces his fragrances. He makes tinctures. The products are natural, like as much as possible. So really fascinating and just a very humble, fascinating dude. So I was like always quite intrigued. I'm really excited to be able to kind of talk to you about this house. Now, first of all, when you receive something from him, you get this cool little letter with a wax seal on it, and to me it feels totally like old world vibes. Like, I've always wanted wax seals. I don't know what I'd put them on, maybe just everything. I just love the fact that there's a wax seal on there. So you open it up, it's just a little letter in here talking about the perfumes, which is kind of neat. Now, the box that the fragrances come in looks like this. So it's kind of cool. Like it's a total wood box. The logo is on here, and then you open this up and you have your perfume kind of nestled in some straw, which I think is the coolest thing. Again, it feels like totally old world vibes. And then, of course, is the fragrance, which I will be sharing near the end. I want to go through the other ones first. So when you get a sample from him, it comes just kind of in this little cardboard thing with the sample right here, but he writes all the notes on it, and then he has a little quote on here for each fragrance, which I think is so cool because it kind of sets a story in motion for the fragrance. So I noticed as far as the notes were concerned, I looked on his website. He also sells on Etiquette and Etsy, and I'll leave all the information linked down below. It seems like the notes are slightly different on them, so I'm just going to go off the notes that are written right on the card, just because he sent this to me, so I'm assuming these notes are fairly accurate. So the first fragrance I want to share with you is called Winter Melon. This one has top notes of green waxy leaves, middle notes of violet leaf and yubari melon from Japan. And that's the other thing, he says where he gets his ingredients from, which I think is super cool. And then base notes of chocolate absolute and orris butter from Italy. So what I get from this one, now I tried all of these on my skin. This one is definitely, you get that green burst in the beginning. You get a realistic melon, like I think of a honeydew type melon, something similar to that. Like you think green when you smell this. You know how fancy skincare sometimes smells like has a melon vibe or cucumber vibe? This is kind of like a cross between a cucumber and a melon to me. Yeah, it's really an interesting fragrance. Now, the thing that is interesting is the chocolate mixed with it. So when you spray it on the card, I don't notice it as much, but when I put it on my skin, I notice the chocolate actually more in the opening than I do in the base. So to begin with, there's this chocolate vibe mixed with the melon. So it would kind of remind me of taking a piece of honeydew and kind of dipping it into like a fondue, chocolate fondue. And so you get a little bit of that mix of coolness with the warm chocolate. So really cool. As it starts to dry down on me, it becomes a lot more just straight up melon with some green in it. Maybe a little bit powdery with that violet, but I don't find it like overly powdery. Like I don't think powder when I smell this. I think fresh, I think clean, refreshing, invigorating, kind of with that cucumbery melon feel to it. So I just think this is cool. Now, when I read the quote, which is coolness of melons flecked with mud in the morning dew, I could totally see that. Like that's what this felt like. The picture that I got for this one was walking through kind of a little bit of a mucky ground, like it's just rained, it's early in the morning, it's a little bit misty outside, you've got rubber boots on or Wellingtons or whatever you happen to call them, and you're kind of mucking about in the garden, and it just feels cool and crisp, and then you run across this melon that's actually still attached to the vine and you pluck it off and then you smell it. So not even necessarily the flesh, but you know that smell, that green smell, that refreshing green melon smell, that's what I'm getting off of this. Now the longevity on this one, this was probably the poorest performer, but I still got about 5 hours out of it. So to me, for one of those refreshing fragrances, I thought that this one was really good. And once that chocolate kind of dissipates, it's pretty linear to me. So yeah, that's Winter Melon. Now, next one is called Golden Guy. The top notes in Golden Guy are American Oakwood CO2, British Beefeater Gin, and French Apricot. And then the middle notes are Czech Wormwood and Canadian Blackberry. I love the fact that he puts where it comes from. Like, I don't know why, but that just makes me happy. And then the base notes are French Chambord liqueur and Virginian tobacco. Now, this was definitely a favorite of mine. I love the way this smells. Like, I sprayed this on a card 2 days ago because I wanted to see, like, how does it smell? Like, sometimes, you know how fragrances, when it's been a couple of, like when it's been a long period of time, they go a little bit weird. This one just stays scrumptious the whole entire time, and it's potent. So this one, I'm absolutely in love with this. If you're a tobacco lover, you would love this fragrance, especially, yeah, if you like the sweet tobacco fragrances. Now, this isn't like Tobacco Vanille. Tobacco Vanille is a lot more, it's got a little bit more fruit. It's a lot more vanillic. This one is definitely more of a boozy tobacco, but I definitely get that apricot. So to me, it smells almost like an apricot where you've bitten into it and it's over, like quite like crazy ripe, or like a nectarine type, like either way, but apricot, that, you know, it's got apricot in, so I think apricot. But you get right down to the pit, and it just smells kind of overripe. That's kind of the feel that you get. So really, really ripe, delicious, sweet apricot in the opening. I get that quite a lot mixed with that wood. So kind of that oaky, cedary wood. To me, it smells almost like a liquor that's been mixed in an oak barrel, and then you've smushed apricot jamminess into it. That's kind of what I get. And then this really delicious tobacco, or maybe it would be like an apricot oakwood tobacco is kind of what you get from this. I'm absolutely in love with this one. I honestly think that I would probably get this over Tobacco Vanille, because I just find that apricot so cool. Yeah, I find this one really, really interesting. The thing about this one is it kind of, as soon as I smelt it, the first thing that I thought of was the Lord of the Rings. Like, I couldn't help it. I thought of the Lord of the Rings, and I thought of Merry and Pippin when they're smoking their long bottom leaf. I don't know why. Like, they're sitting there and there's an oak barrel floating by, and Pippin and Merry are sitting on some sort of ledge, and they're like pretty much drunk. They're smoking their pipes, and there's weird fruit kind of floating about. Somehow that's the vibe. I just thought to myself, this smells otherworldly, and I think that it probably smells like long bottom leaf from the Lord of the Rings. So I really love this. I love the apricot aspect. I like the woodiness. The woodiness never gets heavy, or like sometimes I find wood to be kind of draggy and boring and too warm. This kind of stays bright. I love the tobacco. I love the booziness. I love the apricot. Like, this is definitely a favorite for me. It lasts, oh, I love it. So Golden Guy, it lasts, like it projects well for 3 hours about, and then I find it's more closer to the skin, but it stays all day. So I could smell this all day on my skin. So longevity is great. I wish the sillage was great. That said, I only sprayed a few sprays, so it's hard to really get a feel for sillage when you have just a tiny little sample. So can't really speak to that. But this one is just beautiful. I find that Golden Guy stays a lot more linear. So what I smell in the opening, I smell kind of through the whole entire fragrance. Although I find that the apricot aspect kind of dies down a bit. The kind of liquor tobacco kind of comes out a little bit more in the dry down. So I'm absolutely in love with this one. Like, this is definitely one that I want a full bottle of for sure. And I honestly, like, even though this is tobacco, I honestly think a person could wear this all year round. Like, it's not super duper heavy. I just think this is just intoxicating. Like, I can't stop sniffing myself. Like, seriously, love it. Okay, now the next one I was super excited to try because it's like a 2,500-year-old Egyptian formula. That's the idea behind it. And it's called Temple of Horus. I'm going to read the notes that are on his website because they're different than on the card, and there's just a lot more of them, which I think better represents this one. So this one has Alemi from India. Middle notes are henna from India, wine accord from Crete Island in Greece, juniper from Lebanon, cedarwood from Lebanon, frankincense from Oman, and then the base is myrrh from Egypt, vanilla bean from Madagascar, and benzoin. So I just was so excited to smell this fragrance. Now, when you first spray this, you get tons of that cedar. Like, I smell those kind of resinous, spicy woods. So I just imagine being in the cedars of Lebanon, and it smells like if you cracked open a cedar, like a plank of cedar, cracked it open and smelt that sweet, resinous, delicious cedar smell is what I'm getting in the opening. And then with that is like kind of a resiny, spicy quality. To me, it almost comes across as cinnamon, or almost like a tobacco, but it's more woody than tobacco, if that makes sense. I love the opening, and I find that opening stays on my skin for a good 3-4 hours. And then this begins to morph. And as it morphs, it becomes a lot more inky. So it starts to smell on my skin very inky and almost minerally. So this one really morphs. I'm not crazy about the smell of the dry down on my skin. So I was so in love with the opening of it. Like, I kept on smelling it and going, oh, like, I just absolutely loved it. But as it dries down, that inky kind of minerally vibe, it's not really my taste. I think this one may suit a guy better, and that inkiness, I can see guys really rocking that. It just isn't my vibe. That said, this one gave me a total, like, when I smelled this one, especially like when I thought about the whole entire experience of the fragrance, it felt like a time machine to me. So I've always been intrigued. Like, I had a fragrance one time in a soap, and it was kind of the fragrances that they used in Jesus's day, which is the same thing as the Egyptian time frame, like that kind of idea. So just like the myrrh, the frankincense, cinnamon, like these kind of old world spices all thrown into a fragrance, and I just loved that soap, like loved it. So this kind of reminded me of that, but I just thought, like, with the way it opens and just the liveliness and the life that's in the opening, and then the dry down being more minerally and kind of inky, like I think it's that henna maybe, I don't know. But what it totally gave me the feel of is like a time machine. So I just imagined myself like somehow you spray it on you and all of a sudden swoosh, you're in Egypt. Like they can't see you, but you're in that whole entire experience. You're in a market. You can smell the spices. You're seeing the people with their weird like eye makeup from Egypt times, and the hats and the crazy outfits and just the whole entire vibe. You go to the temple, you feel like the incense that's in the temple and kind of experience all of that. And you end up in the pyramids, and then all of a sudden, swoosh, you're transported to this time period, and you're smelling the smell in like a tomb, where you smell like the ink, and you smell minerals, and you smell almost like the sarcophagus mummy type thing, like the gold, the metallics, like all of that. That's kind of the feel that I get in the dry down. So for me, like I just really appreciated the artistry, and like I said, that opening is just fantastic. But it's just not for me. Like I wouldn't purchase this one. Just because I don't like that dry down, but man, this is fascinating. It's totally, totally cool. And it is like a stunning fragrance. So I think it's beautiful. I think especially for a guy, they can pull off that mineral, inky, incensey aspect, but I'm sure women would like this one as well. I'm just not crazy about that dry down, but so fascinating. And this one is called Cherry Rose. Now, the full name is Cherry Rose Chocolate Patchouli, which is exactly what this fragrance is. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the bottle, because these are kind of the bottles that you get. They do have another style of bottle, which I prefer the look of it, because it's just kind of so unique and different. And it has the seal on it. You're seeing the picture of it. So I think that that's a really cool bottle. However, this bottle I would say is a lot more modern and probably appeals to more people. What I like about this bottle is that the glass has his, like all of the logo and everything on this is etched in. So it's etched right on the glass, which I think is really cool. The cap is just, I think, a plastic cap. The atomizer on this, fairly good. I like my atomizers to be like a real long fine mist, but this one is nice, and it definitely gives you a nice spray. So now smelling that on the air, this is the epitome of spring, summer goodness. I am in love with this fragrance. So Cherry Rose has Black Cherry Accord and Lychee Accord. The mid is May Rose from Grasse, France, Orris Butter from Northern Italy, and the base is four types of patchouli from India and Indonesia, and Cocoa Absolute from Mexico. Now, this is a real morpher of a fragrance. Seriously, I am so in love with this fragrance. I'm so happy with it. He let me pick whatever I wanted, and it was a toss-up between this and Golden Guy, and I kind of wish I had both, because they're both amazing, but I'm so happy that I have this one, especially for the spring and summer. This is such a beautiful, beautiful rose fragrance. The way it feels to me when I smell this, I think of Beauty and the Beast. Like, I can't help it. So not the movie, because I didn't like the movie, and I don't like the chick that played in the movie. That movie was really lame. But Beauty and the Beast in my brain, like the actual story, I just imagine Belle, and she's gone. She's looking for her father, and so she's wearing that a beautiful like kind of dress with a cloak around her, and she is mesmerized by this beautiful, delicate rose, the most spectacular rose you've ever seen. And she plucks it off and she sniffs it, and somehow it's got these beautiful accords of fruit in there. It's just intoxicating, the best rose she's ever smelled. And she's taking in that rose and just enjoying the fragrance, and then the beast comes. So the beast being the patchouli. So she's then in the castle, she's experiencing the romance of like this like Let's face it, who doesn't want a beast in their life? Like sometimes we need a bit of a beast, right? So it's the love story between her, between Belle and the beast. So she's the beautiful rose and he's the patchouli, the spiciness, and you mix the two of them together and you get total magic out of this perfume. So I'm in love with it. Like, I'm so happy I have this. Like, seriously, it's so, so good. So really enjoy it. The performance is fantastic on this one. Again, sillage, not really sure yet because it's not like I've worn it out in public. So I can't really speak to that, although I think it does, you get some projection for about 2 hours, let's say, and then it does sit a little closer to the skin, but it lasts all day. And the more this dries down, so it starts out, like I said, that kind of fresh, beautiful rose with that little bit of fruitiness on the fruity accords, with that cherry and the lychee, just keeps it bright and delicate and delicious. And then as it dries down, kind of becomes a little bit more thick and dense, but smells so, so smooth. Like, the smooth was the only word that I could think of, like butter smooth. So I just imagine having this rich, dense rose with these accords in it that kind of age a little bit, and then you could somehow spread them on a pastry. That's the vibe I get. But you don't smell pastry. You just smell that accord getting deeper. And then in comes that patchouli, that spiciness that represents the beast. And it's not dirty. I sometimes find patchouli a little bit harsh. This is just sexy. So it goes from being an innocent rose to a little bit of a sexy rose. I really like this one. I'm so happy. I am so happy that I have this one. I love wearing Beauty and the Beast. Like, to me, that's what this one will always be called, because that's what it reminds me of. So love this one. So happy to have this for spring and summer. The Golden Guy is definitely on my wish list, man. I'm in love with this fragrance as well. Temple of Horus, I think it's totally fascinating. I wouldn't purchase it, but it is really, really cool. Like, it's so, so cool. I'm so glad that I got to sniff it. You can purchase samples. They're quite pricey, but if you want to have an experience, you got to try this one. Winter Melon, fresh, relaxing fragrance. For me, Cherry Rose, fantastic. Golden Guy, absolutely amazing. The other two are beautiful, just not necessarily my vibe. The last thing that I'll say is, I've watched reviews and they're always talking about him being a vintage perfumer. I don't know, like, maybe that's how he wants to be known. The fragrances that I've smelt don't feel vintage to me at all. So this smells very modern, in my opinion. Golden Guy, very modern, super unisex. This is a sexy, delicious, intoxicating fragrance. Temple of Horus, even though this is an old kind of like, inspired from like this ancient time, to me it doesn't smell vintage or out of date. I think it's just absolutely amazing. And Winter Melon, same thing. It's sweet. It's to me very modern. It's just delicious. So I don't understand the vintage thing. Maybe that's how he wants to be known. Maybe some of his other fragrances in the past have smelt a little bit vintagey, but I just think these are super cool. So check them out if you're interested. Like I said, you can get sample packs. You can get a 10-piece sample pack for, I think, $100 Canadian, 3-piece for $50. Thank you so much to Matthew Meleg for sending these to me. Please go check out his site. Like I said, everything will be linked down below. I am so impressed. I love when fragrances give me like the feels, and all of these manage to do that. So that is it for today. I hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon.